The black sheep are God's chosen ones, unbroken, unfiltered, unforgettable. The ones who never belonged. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer this honestly, even if only in your heart. Have you ever sat in a room full of your own family and felt completely alone? Have you ever been told by a parent, a sibling, a teacher, a community that you were too much, too sensitive, too different, too difficult, too strange, too intense, too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too deep? Have you ever looked at the people around you and thought, I love you, but I do not belong here? If any of those words touched something inside you, this message was written for you, because today we are going to talk about the black sheep, the misfit, the outlier, the one who got left out, pushed aside, or quietly erased from the family portrait of normal. And I want you to understand something that took many extraordinary souls decades to finally believe about themselves. Being the black sheep is not a curse. It is a calling. What is a black sheep? In the traditional sense, a black sheep was the odd one out in a flock, literally a sheep born with dark wool in a white flock. Farmers considered it bad luck, something to be tolerated, not celebrated. Psychologically, the term describes the family member who deviates from the expected norm, who questions traditions others follow blindly, who feels things more deeply, who refuses to conform, or who carries the weight of unspoken family wounds without even knowing it. But here is what modern psychology is beginning to uncover, what researchers in family systems therapy, developmental psychology, and trauma studies are slowly confirming. The black sheep is rarely the problem. The black sheep is usually the symptom revealer, the one sensitive enough to feel the dysfunction that everyone else has learned to normalize. The psychology of family scapegoating and family systems theory, there is a concept called the identified patient, the one family member who is labeled as troubled, difficult, or broken. This person becomes the container for the family's unresolved pain. They carry shame that isn't theirs. They express grief that others have buried. They act out the conflict that no one else will name. And here is the tragic irony. This role is almost always assigned to the most emotionally intelligent member of the family, the one who can feel what others cannot, the one whose nervous system is tuned so finely that they pick up on every vibration of tension, every undercurrent of resentment, every unspoken truth hiding behind a dinner table smile. The black sheep feels too much, and the family, rather than healing, punishes them for feeling. That is the beginning of the wound. But it is also, and this is critical, the beginning of the gift, the spiritual dimension chosen, not cursed, across the great spiritual traditions of the world, from ancient Hebrew scripture to Sufi mysticism, from Hindu philosophy to indigenous wisdom teachings. There is a recurring archetype. It is the archetype of the rejected one who becomes the anointed one. Think of every great transformation story in human history. The one who changes the world is almost never the comfortable insider. It is the outsider, the exile, the one who was expelled from the inner circle and in that expulsion found their true power. Why? Because separation creates depth, rejection creates resilience, being misunderstood forces you to understand yourself. The wilderness is sacred ground in the psychology of spiritual development. There is something called the liminal space, the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. It is the wilderness, the in-between, the place of not yet. The black sheep lives there permanently, and it is agonizing, but it is also sacred, because the wilderness is where transformation happens. You cannot be shaped into something extraordinary while you are comfortable. You cannot develop extraordinary empathy without extraordinary pain. You cannot build extraordinary vision while surrounded by ordinary thinking. The chosen ones are always sent into the wilderness first. They are always misunderstood before they are celebrated. They are always rejected before they are needed. Your expulsion from belonging was not evidence that you were wrong. It was preparation for the work only you can do. The psychological gifts of the outlier. Now let us get specific. Let us talk about what being the black sheep actually builds inside you, the psychological architecture that develops in the crucible of not belonging. Radical self-awareness. When you are the one who doesn't fit, you are forced to examine yourself constantly. The family mirror shows you a distorted, unflattering image, and so you learn to look elsewhere. You learn to look inward. This develops something most people never cultivate: genuine self-awareness. While others absorb the identity handed to them by the community, the black sheep must build their identity from scratch, from the raw materials of solitude, reflection, and hard-won self-knowledge. Psychologists call this individuation, the process by which a person becomes a psychologically integrated individual, separate from the collective. Most people never complete this journey. The black sheep is forced to begin it early, and often painfully. The result is a person who knows who they are not because life was easy, but because they had no choice but to find out. Extraordinary empathy there is a specific kind of empathy that only comes from knowing what it feels like to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be misread, to be loved conditionally. When you have sat at the edge of belonging, you develop an almost supernatural sensitivity to the pain of others who sit at the same edge. You notice the one who is left out. You feel the unspoken hurt in a room. You are drawn to the overlooked, the wounded, the misunderstood. This is not an accident. This is design. The chosen ones are placed in pain so they can speak to pain. They are sent into exile so they can return as guides for those still lost in the wilderness. The courage of nonconformity. One of the most devastating things social conformity does to a human being is, it kills their capacity for truth. When belonging is conditional on agreement, people stop saying what they actually see. They stop asking the questions that need to be asked. They choose comfort over honesty, acceptance over integrity. The black sheep has already lost that conditional belonging. There is nothing left to protect by staying silent. And so, something remarkable happens. The black sheep becomes capable of radical honesty, of saying the thing no one else will say, of naming the emperor's nakedness, of refusing to participate in the collective delusion. History has been changed by people who refused to agree with what was around them. That refusal which got them rejected, condemned, and, sometimes worse, was the very thing the world needed from them. Resilience that cannot be manufactured. Psychologists who study post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon by which some people emerge from suffering not merely intact but genuinely transformed, have identified a consistent pattern. The people with the greatest psychological strength are rarely those who had the easiest lives. They are those who were broken open and who chose to build something new from the fracture. The black sheep has been broken open, repeatedly, by exclusion, by misunderstanding, by the grinding loneliness of being surrounded by people who cannot see you. And if you are still standing, if you are here, receiving these words, then you have already proven something essential. You are unbreakable in the ways that matter most. The wound that becomes the weapon. There is a concept in depth psychology called the wounded healer. The idea is both ancient and scientifically supported. Those who have gone deepest into their own darkness are the most capable of accompanying others through theirs. The wound is not something to be ashamed of. It is the source of your authority. It is why people trust you when you speak about pain, because they can feel that you have been there. It is not theory for you. It is lived experience. It is scar tissue. Your rejection is your credential. Your exile is your education. Your pain is your power. But this is crucial. If you have done the work to integrate, then you can proceed. The danger of the unhealed wound. This is where we must be honest about the shadow side of the black sheep experience. The same sensitivity that makes you extraordinary can become the wound that destroys you if you do not heal it. The intensity that makes you a visionary can become self-destruction if it is not channeled. The isolation that built your depth can become a prison if you use it to avoid vulnerability. There are black sheep who carry their story as a badge of victimhood, who use their wound to justify staying small, staying disconnected, staying bitter. There are outliers who mistake their alienation for superiority, their pain for permission to push others away. That is not the path. The chosen one does not stay in the wilderness forever. The wilderness is the preparation, not the destination. At some point, the black sheep must return not to the dysfunction they came from, but to the world carrying what they found in the solitude and the struggle. And that return requires healing. It requires therapy, or mentorship, or community, or prayer, or all of the above. You were not broken so you could stay broken. You were broken open so something greater could pour through. Reclaiming your identity, one of the deepest wounds carried by those who were made to feel like the family problem, is a question that haunts them. What is wrong with me? I want to give you a different question, a better question. The question that changes everything. What was I? Protecting the family from having to face? Because here is the truth that family systems therapy teaches us. The identified patient, the scapegoat, the black sheep, they are almost never the source of the dysfunction. They are the ones sensitive enough to express it, to embody it, to make visible what everyone else has agreed to keep invisible. You were not the problem. You were the truth teller in a system that punished truth. And now, freed from that system, or at least beginning to free yourself, you have a choice. You can continue to carry the shame they assigned you, or you can set it down. You can say, this shame was never mine. I was holding it for people who were not brave enough to hold it themselves. And I am choosing today to give it back. Building a new narrative. Cognitive narrative therapy teaches us that the stories we tell about our lives shape the lives we are able to live. If you tell the story of being the rejected one, the unwanted one, the broken one, that story becomes a cage. But you can rewrite it, not by denying the pain, never by denying the pain, but by expanding the interpretation, by seeing that the rejection was redirection, by understanding that the loneliness was sanctuary, by recognizing that the thing that made you different is the same thing that makes you necessary. The new story goes like this. I was different because I was designed for something different. I was isolated because I needed to be built in solitude. I was misunderstood because the world was not yet ready for what I carry. But the world is ready now. And so am I. Your time has come. We are living in a moment in human history that is calling for something very specific. It is calling for people who can think differently, who can feel deeply, who can speak truth in the presence of pressure, who have been tested by fire and came out not destroyed but refined. The world does not need more conformists. The world does not need people whose greatest skill is fitting in. The world needs people who have been to the edges, who have looked into the abyss of their own rejection and came back with something to say about it. The world needs you, not in spite of your strangeness, because of it, not in spite of your wound, through it, not in spite of your long season in the wilderness, equipped by it. Slow down. Let the next words land. The black sheep were never meant to become white sheep. They were never meant to bleach themselves into something acceptable to a flock that was never their home. They were meant to find their own kind, to build their own community, to create the belonging they were never given. And in creating that belonging for themselves, they created a sense of belonging. They create it for everyone else who has ever sat at the margins wondering if there is a place in this world for people like them. There is. You are that place. So I will close with this. If you have been the one who didn't fit, know that the mold was not made for you. If you have been the one who felt too much, know that the feeling was never the problem. The numbness around you was. If you have been the one who was told your light was too bright, know that the room was just too small. You are not the black sheep of your family. You are the light bearer of your lineage. You are the cycle breaker. You are the one who ends what should have ended generations ago and begins what could not have begun without someone exactly like you. Go do what you were always meant to do.